Welcome. This is Jim Eaton, Senior Marketing Vice President of Service Quality Institute. This audio tape is designed to be a reinforcement and follow-up to your involvement in Service First. We'd like to congratulate you not only for your involvement in the program, but for being a part of a very important and valuable profession, and that, of course, is customer service. Your role is critical, as you certainly know, to delivering not only the product and service that your company or organization offers, but delivering in a way that your customers, whether they be your coworkers or those people that buy your company's products and services, enjoy not only today but on an ongoing basis. As a purpose of this program, we'd like to share some thoughts and ideas from our experience. And while it will be informal, we'd basically like to challenge you to take some of these thoughts and ideas and leverage what you have learned based upon your respective experience, as we will share with you based upon our experience in being a part of your profession for a number of years as well. With me is John Scholl, founder and president of Service Quality Institute. And over his 10 to 15 years of working with literally hundreds of companies and organizations and tens of thousands of people, he's learned some things that he'd like to share with both of us today. So with that as a backdrop, I'd like to get underway by hitchhiking on a couple of core ideas that your leader in the Service First program used as benchmarks for your particular involvement with the Service First process. Those ideas are these. First of all, we'd like to ask you, as you think about the program and think about these ideas, not only to think about them from giving service, but being on the receiving end of various service encounters. In the context of buying a program or product, we would like to ask you to not only think about the perspective of what it takes to be an effective salesperson for ideas, but what it's like to be on the receiving end of a particular set of attitudes, philosophies, and skills. The second point we'd like to make as a sort of a core or platform idea is that our goal and your company and organization's goal is to provide tools and resources that enhances the overall professionalism of service and customer satisfaction. And if you think about what it takes to be a professional, we'd like to sort of build these premises as the core points for being a professional. And that is, a professional is someone who is good and knows why they're good. They are able to literally identify and measure what they do when they are at their best and what they do when they're not at their best and know the difference. They're able to, therefore, critique performance. They're able to step back and sort of take a Polaroid shot of how they're doing in a given situation. And thirdly, the pro, in addition to critiquing performance, is also someone that recognizes, because of change and the demands on us as learners, that there's always a need to be on the grow, to learn how to learn. So we're contending that that's really what the basis is of Service First, the way to help you make sense out of everyday experience, to critique your performance, and to be a symbol of being on the grow. John, against that backdrop, and the whole purpose of the Service First system, why is customer satisfaction or customer service so important today?
Well, the market has really changed. There's a much greater emphasis throughout the world on customer service. Whether you like it or not, your competitors are trying to focus on customer service. Consumers, the public, is demanding higher levels of service. So with that background, it's critical that all of us be much more focused on customer service. In addition, those firms that are not focusing on service, I don't think will survive the 90s. They will not be here, partly because your customers are demanding service, partly because your competitors are expecting higher levels of service. So if we're going to be around in the 90s, we're going to be successful in the 90s, it's imperative that we really focus on a total service commitment and a total service strategy.
Great. From the perspective of our listeners, the customer service professionals that we have identified, whether they be financial service people, whether they be in the automobile industry, whether they be in the convenience store business, supermarkets, whether they're in the airline business, the trucking business, just imagine that you're one of those people on the firing line, dealing with mostly good situations or encounters with coworkers or customers, but sometimes not so desirable situations. What's in it for them? What's in it for them to be interested in all this stuff that we're talking about in Service First?
There's a number of benefits for participants of Service First. Most importantly, I believe the concepts and skills we focus on help an employee feel better about themselves. It improves your own self-worth. The most important person in the service arena is really you. It's not the organization. It's not your supervisor. It's truly you. And what we're trying to do is to build you, because to the customer, you are the most important person. You know, interesting enough, in the manufacturing environments which we grew out of the industrial age, the people at the very top were by far the most important. In a service arena, it's just the exact opposite. The people at the top are not nearly that important, but those of you who have the greatest influence on service, the professionals, have a lot more impact in what's happening out there. And so it's important for us to recognize the kind of skills that are needed for you and to build those kind of skills so you can be more effective on the job.
Okay. I'd like to add one other thing, John. It goes back to a particular situation a few years ago that I was involved in a major western ski area where we worked with people that were really seasonal employees. And one of the things that organization sort of provided is a vehicle for people to see the job as a true learning and growing experience. If you think about it, there's never been a time when communication and or people skills have been more important than today. We're living in a world where relationships are so important, particularly because life is so changing and so transient. And if we can see our job as a laboratory to really learn and grow, and that becomes something that we can add to our portfolio, it's a significant opportunity, literally, to provide ourselves with career development.
Jim, there's a couple other things I think worth expanding on. When you work for an organization that's service-driven and that has that kind of an image out there in the public, it's fun to work for them. It's fun to tell your friends where you're working, and we like to associate with successful organizations, so you have a win-win type of relationship there. Secondly, if we can build the teamwork, if we can have that positive interrelationship with our fellow employees, it makes the job a whole lot more exciting. Now, it's maybe never happened to anybody that's listening to this tape, but sometimes we don't like all the people we're working with. You know, sometimes it becomes very frustrating, and it doesn't create the excitement level that it should have of going to work. And then another reason why it's important to focus on this, the Bureau of Labor Statistics show that only 11% of American workers get formal training and 14% get informal training from employers to prepare them for their jobs. Now, to many of you, you're going to say, so what? The interesting thing about this data is that learning on the job enjoys a 25 to 30% earnings advantage over those who don't. And people who have had informal training on a prior job earn 20% more than those who had none. Now, I know that in the service arena, many of us move on to different careers and different professions. The benefit, though, is as we make those changes, both in our present job and in future jobs, we are going to become more valuable and even be able to earn more money because of the skills we've acquired.
Okay, well, those are great points, John, and I can't emphasize enough how important we see these as the basis of self-management, of really being in charge of what you learn and how you use what you learn for not only your company's good, which, you know, they're paying our salary, so we do have to be a bit concerned about that, But the things that we're talking about here are something that are yours. You own them, and you can take them with you forever. Okay, let's move on to the core part of the program. So far, we've really alluded to the sort of theme of why customer satisfaction or the customer service professional is so darn important. Let's talk now some specifics from the program, or from the Service First process. And what we'd like to talk a minute or two about is the whole notion of feeling good about yourself, or what we might call self-management. And that is the idea that while logistics, equipment, all the things that support you in doing your job are vital, whether it be computers, whether it be the physical plant, whether it be the equipment that you have access to, whether it be telephones or fax systems, those things are all important in getting your job done. Yet the real important point may not only be those components, but how we manage ourselves in terms of our communication skills, how we manage our own thought and feelings, not only when things go well, which they do, I suspect, 90% of the times, but maybe we really get paid for managing ourselves in those 10 or 15% of the times when things don't go well, when there is stress, when there is conflicts, when things really screw up. So, John, I'd like to ask you to share your thoughts around this sort of subtle issue of self-management. How do we take more charge of ourselves?
There are several skills taught in Service First. First is self-talk, and I think that's probably one of the more critical elements, because what self-talk really says is that we got to give ourselves recognition for a job well done. We need to give ourselves positive feedback. We need to compliment ourselves for what we're doing. We tend to look for positive feedback from our employers, our supervisors, and frankly, I know of no one that has ever received too much positive feedback, positive recognition from their supervisor. We have such an appetite and such a demand that we need to develop the skills to give that kind of feedback to ourselves on a daily basis. And if we do that, we're going to be stronger, more motivated, have a higher self-esteem, a higher self-worth, and more self-confidence when we deal with those difficult situations. Second thing is we need to learn how to handle problems. So when we have a difficult situation with a customer, we're instantaneously able to solve the problem to the customer's satisfaction. Unfortunately, many people just assume that from birth we're an expert at handling problems and in handling irate situations and difficult situations. So we need to master the skills. Service First focuses on some of those skills. But I think even more critical, we need to understand why. Why would we really want to do that? Why don't we just blow off the customer? What's the real value of trying to keep the customer? And there's been a lot of research that's been done in the area of customer service, and some of the most valuable stuff I've seen shows that every time you get one complaint, there are 26 people that didn't complain. That's not the bad news. If it was a major ticket item over $100, 91% of those people will never do business with your organization again. And these are significant dollars. And then the other difficulty we got is a word-of-mouth advertising. But had we been able to solve that complaint, that problem, immediately, quickly to the customer satisfaction, we would have been able to convert 85% of those people to wanting to continue to do business with us. So we really need to focus on keeping customers. And the whole process, the whole concept behind customer service says it is less expensive to keep customers rather than only trying to acquire new customers. You know, there's some additional information I think that's valuable when we talk about this whole complaint handling thing about what is the value of a customer. For example, in purchasing of automobiles, over our lifetime, the typical individual